It is imperative that I must stress the following point at the start of as many chapters as possible, a fact that easily escapes the attention of people studying the subjects of Muhammad, his Quran and his Sunnah. All the information that humanity has regarding Muhammad, his alleged revelations, his deeds, his thoughts, and those whom he and his followers accuse of having been his persecutors and enemies, are bequeathed to us by one source only, that of Muhammad and his followers. Their reports about the pagan Arabs, Christian and Judaized Arabs and others are of course self-serving and transmitted by the victors, without a single outside eyewitness report to any of them. There are no independent records from the victims of Muhammad and his followers, verifying or contesting their allegations, since these victims, pagan Arabs, Christian Arabs and Judaized Arabs, were slaughtered, forcibly converted or exiled, and any and all of their records and artifacts have been lost. Hence, not a single hadith transmitted to humanity by the Muhammadan Muslims can be considered based on any fact or reality. Having said this, when studying, and I repeat the word studying, these subjects, one can still find several nuggets of truth among the tons of rubble mendacities. The story of the Battle of the Trench has reference to it in Muhammad's Quran, but the main source comes from the reports mentioned by Muhammad ibn Ishaq in his monumental Sirat Rasulullah, as translated by Alfred Guillaume in his The Life of Muhammad. So-called believers and unbelieving kuffar, before I start exploring this battle with you, I shall remind you all once again that every single word that I shall read to you had been written by the self-serving followers of Muhammad between 140 to 300 years after the event itself, and is entirely one-sided, unsubstantiated and uncorroborated by any other eyewitness to the same event. I shall summarize this story, the details of which can be found in Alfred Guillaume's The Life of Muhammad, starting on page 450. According to the different Muslim sources, this battle allegedly occurred on the 2nd, 4th or 9th of Shawwal, 5th Hijriya, March 627 AD. Muslim army 3,000, pagan army 24,000, Muslim martyrs none. This battle is also known by various names: Battle of Khandaq, Trench, Battle of Ahzab and Battle of Abu Sufyan. The pagans considered Islam a threat to their economic security and political supremacy in Arabia, and they could never be reconciled to its existence. They knew that if they could kill Muhammad, their interests would be safeguarded and their hegemony would be restored in Arabia. With this aim, they decided to strike a final and crushing blow upon Medina and to exterminate all Muslims. Pagan tribes outside Mecca were sharing with them the same dream. This belief brought together these tribes. A delegation from these people went to Mecca and other Arab communities during the 5th year after the Hijrah, propagating war against Muhammad and attempting to mobilize the Arab forces for the proposed war. They did not need much effort to persuade the Meccans to a military undertaking against Muhammad. Their response to the invitation was prompt, and without hesitation, they mobilized 4,000 fighters. There were clashes between the Muslims and some of the people of the book, Judaized Arabs or Jews, who were neighboring Medina, caused by their breaching of covenants with Muhammad. The following 7 tribes took part in this battle against the Muslims: Ghatfan, Salim, Asja, Asad, Qariza, Tazir and Quraysh. This army of about 24,000 was commanded by Abu Sufyan, and the Muslim army, which numbered 3,000, was commanded by Muhammad. Muhammad received the news of the imminent invasion a few days before their arrival at Medina. He consulted his companions, and Salman al-Farisi, the Persian, counseled to dig a trench around Medina to prevent the invaders from entering it. Muhammad commanded the Muslims to implement the plan. The number of days required to dig the trench is reported to be between 6 and 20 days, as per different historical accounts. Witnessing the trench, the invaders were surprised and realized that it had become difficult for them to enter Medina. Thus, they found it necessary to besiege Medina instead of invading it directly. The siege continued for about 20 or 27 days. There were many hypocrites among the Muslims who circulated frightening rumors, which added to the fear of the Muslims. The Quran tells us of the psychological crisis with which the Muslims lived during that period. Al-Ahzab 33.10. Behold, they came upon you from above you and from below you. And when the eyes grew wild and the hearts gaped up to the throats, and you imagined various vain thoughts about Allah, the hypocrites and those in whose heart there is disease even say, Allah and His Apostle promised us nothing but delusion. Behold, a party among them said, O people of Yathrib, Medina, you cannot stand the attack, therefore turn back. They intended nothing but to flee. It is also reported in Ma'arij al-Nubuwah 4.128 that when Amr bin Abdul challenged the Muslims, Omar added to the fright by saying that Amr was such a fighter who alone fought 1,000 men at one time. Amr ibn Abdul, accompanied by Dihrar ibn al-Khattab, Akrama ibn Abu Jahl and others, sought and found a narrow place in the trench. Their horses leaped above the trench to the other side. The Muslims were in a state of shock and horror before the passage of these pagan soldiers to their side. The new danger which was presented by their passage made the morale of the Muslims much lower than before. Though the hearts of most of the Muslims were filled with fear, some of them were unshaken by the new danger. It rather made their faith stronger in Allah and His Messenger and the promised victory.